Welcome to TLD Cast on Wednesday. I'm your guest host today, Cara North, and I have missed you all terribly. So I have finished up my semester, and it feels good to have a couple weeks off from school. So I was really excited to get back in the hosting chair today and talk with my friend Clint Clarkson. And if you don't know who Clint is, he's going to explain a little bit kind of about his background. And don't know if you've heard of this, but got this little book here, the L&D Scenes. And what we're going to, yeah, he's got one, I got one. And what we're going to do, which I'll let Clint explain here in a minute, we're actually going to give two copies of this away, one from my pocketbook and one from Clint's pocketbook. And so I just want to share really briefly how you can get entered today for the raffle on my end, and then I'll let Clint say hello and then explain on his end. So let me share really quickly. Let's see here. So I'm using a tool called UMU, which stands for You, Me, and Us. And I have a saying, if you know me, if it's free, it's for me. And UMU is a free tool that you can use, and you might want to add to your particular, your toolbox of what you do. So with UMU, all I need you to do is you can either click the button below the video and enter code 843607. And basically all I want is just your name and an email address. And then what it's going to do, this is going to be so much fun, is I have everyone's name in here that has already shared and has added it in today. And then it's going to randomly pick a winner from this. So it's really cool. It does say TechSmith raffle, yes, because I copied it over from a previous. Thank you, Joe Ganchi. Nothing gets past Joe Ganchi, ladies and gentlemen. Just putting that out there. Love it. But anyway, I just wanted to show that today. Maybe that will be a nice spare way of giving that out. And I'll go ahead and close this window. No, Joe, I'm just teasing you. I appreciate it. Hey, J Rock. Hey, Joe. Hey, Eric. Ann. Good to see everybody. Hey, Jane. So without further ado, I'm going to quit rambling, and I want to introduce the man of the hour, Mr. Clint Clarkson. Welcome to TLD Cast. So glad to have you back.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me back.
Yeah, so share a little bit about how people can get a copy of this from you today.
Well, what we'd like to do is obviously we want to promote the book and let more people know that it is now available. So the ask is that everybody's on the live channel right now. Just jump on LinkedIn, go to Cara North's giveaway, and just click share. That's it. That's all we need to do, just to get a few more bodies into that giveaway, and that's all. That's all I'm asking.
Put me on the spot. I had to quickly think, oh my gosh, what's my LinkedIn URL? I was like, oh gosh, because I always mess it up because I always forget putting the little N after the LinkedIn, which I don't know why they do that. But I'm always surprised how many people don't know you can customize the last part of it. And I silently judge people that's like 2x585B. I'm like, come on, that's not your name. Anyway. Not about LinkedIn today. It's about Clint and his fabulous comic book about L&D. So I love your origin story. You're like a bunch of us. You just kind of randomly got into this career path. So do you care to share a little bit about what got you into L&D?
Absolutely. Yeah. So L&D was a complete accident, I think, like most people. At the time, I was actually working for a collection agency, of all places, and I was really, really bad at it. I'm too nice. I have a hard time telling people they need to pay their bills when they can't feed their kids. So I went around as a collector and sat with all of the other collectors, all of the best collectors, and just started making ridiculous notes on the types of things they were doing, the types of words they were using, how they were setting up calls, how they were setting up follow-ups. And I built this whole manual out just based on what all of the best collectors were doing. And the VP of operations showed up at my desk one day with the manual in his hand. I have no idea how he got a copy of it or printed it, and said, "Did you make this?" I thought for sure I was in trouble. I thought for sure I was getting fired. And I sheepishly went, yeah, that was me. And he said, "You're going to be our new corporate trainer. You start Monday." No idea what I'm doing. And I can tell you, especially from that first couple of years as a trainer, oh man, was it bad. I look back, some of the things that I did, I look back on and go, I'm surprised I didn't get fired for being the trainer. And then from there, decided that I think I figured out that I wasn't very good at this, and decided that I was going to delve into it more deeply. And that's when I started my education in learning and development. I had the great fortune of working with some brilliant instructional designers throughout my career that have helped me become better at what I do. And yeah, that's pretty much the story. Now I've started my own business and developing e-learning most of the time.
Very cool. And just so you know, I think a lot of us are that way. We are a little bit self-deprecating at the beginning of our career looking back. I know that that's something that Tim Slade's kind of known for when he presents. He kind of shows some of the stuff that he did in his early days. So I think we're all there. So you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. So you've got your own consulting business, which is great. So tell us a little bit about this. How did you decide that what we do is comical? I mean, surely you wouldn't have thought there was something out there, right? I mean, comics, L&D, what?
Yeah, and to be fair, I got laughed at quite a bit about it. Even my wife, who I put at the very beginning of the book, I don't call her out in it specifically, but there's a mini comic called A True Story. And it was her making fun of me when I told her I was going to turn this into a book, and she literally said, "Oh, I can't wait to buy that! So exciting!" But friends, family, everyone said I was nuts. But the story behind how it started isn't particularly exciting. It wasn't something that I had planned to build out as far as it's gone. I had actually started 7 different social media projects, one for one day of the week, and I thought I'm going to do this for 5 weeks and see what happens, see if any of them stick, see where I get traction. And the comics were just sort of were actually a throw-in at the end because I couldn't come up with another idea. I did a blog and sketch notes and giveaways and those sorts of things. And it was only supposed to last 5 weeks. But the 5th comic, it's called I'm an Instructional Designer. That's the one that landed. That's the one that really started to get some traction, started to get people involved, because all of the instructional designers that I'm connected with looked at it and said, yeah, I live that. I know that experience, and asked for more comics. And so I said, okay, I'll do another 5. By the time I hit 10, they had just taken off. They were getting lots of views, lots of comments, and it was clear I just needed to keep going with it. I will say this, though. I had 7 different activities. So this is the 1/7 success story. The other 6 were utter failures.
Isn't that how it goes, though? I mean, typically you have all these little things you kind of put out there, and then one sticks, and you're like, okay, cool, that's the one that I should go to. Clint, do you mind if I share another window? Because I have the Kindle version too. Like, I love this so much. I've bought multiple versions of this book, just to kind of show people what it looks like. And do you have a particular one you want me to show? Can I just do the number 1 my manager sent me? I love that one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right. Let me go ahead and I'll share that, and then that way we can maybe kind of talk a little bit about it. So if you're here live, please ask Clint some questions if you're interested. We have a couple ways you can do it. You can either pop it in the chat and I can grab it, or there's an ask a question feature underneath the video that you can ask a question of Clint. And hopefully everybody can see that here. Let me go ahead and make that big. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about this. Talk to us a little bit maybe about the art, your inspiration. Are most of these things that's happened to you, or have you just been in places and you've, quote, ear hustled some of these goodies away?
Yeah, it's some of both. So this is a real life experience for me, and probably for just about everybody who's ever been a trainer. I don't want to be here. I'm a victim. Training is horrible. Let me go back to work. And the initial writing process was actually really difficult because I couldn't figure out how to end this. I knew what the scene was, but I couldn't figure out, the bonk on the head in the imagination, then just the which is what most trainers are experiencing. That was the hard part, and it took me a long time to start figuring that out. The thing that I realized quite early on, though, with the comics, within the first 10, is that there's a lot of different perspectives in this. And I actually, not even within the first 10, I think it's probably on the first one. I couldn't tell you who made the comment, but as soon as people started to talk about this particular comment, there were a lot of people that were, yeah, that sucks. I hate being in that experience. Why do we have to do that as trainers? And then there were another group of people that chimed in fairly quickly and said, well, learners, how does it feel to be a learner when you're forced to come into training, you don't want to be there, and you don't think that you need to be there? Well, that's a pretty negative user experience, and how are we supposed to train someone in that situation? And then later on, it took a little while. Somebody else jumped in and went, yeah, but what about the manager's perspective here? They've got a training department who's supposed to train their people, is supposed to help them become better at their jobs. And every time they ask for something of the training department, it's, well, we need more buy-in, or we need more budget, or we need more time. And then so that conversation started organically, and it started pretty early on. And that's one of the things I think about when I look at any of the comics or read any of the new comics, are those three perspectives: the business, the L&D team, and the learner. What's their experience inside this? And sometimes it's not as obvious. Sometimes it's you have to infer it a bit, but it's always there. There's always those three perspectives.
I love that. So you think about it from different angles, and I think that that's really important because a lot of times, well, in storytelling, specifically, a lot of times you just kind of maybe only get one or two perspectives. So being able to kind of like go between and think of different ways from different perspectives, I think is really important. I'm trying to remember who it is. I cannot remember the lady's name for the life of me, but there's a conference I went to, I want to say it was 2 years ago, where she actually brought up the hashtag on Twitter, training sucks, and went through, and I mean, some of the stories that came up through that was hilarious. And so now I just randomly will go to hashtag training sucks, and you would, I mean, I'm sure you could get a ton of fodder for that. And if you don't mind, I have a couple questions here in the Q&A, and I think some of them, I don't think it was Cindy, Joe. Maybe Cindy has said that, but I want to say this lady was maybe at Coca-Cola at some time. I cannot remember her name. It's going to kill me. I'm going to look up who that lady was. But Joe Wyndham had a great question about how many spies that you have in the business around the world to share your conversations in the comics. I think you kind of maybe answered a little bit, but do you have plants out in the field?
Yeah, I must have. It's surprising how often I get accused of that. Are you in my office? Are you spying on me? I actually debated using something along those lines, a pun on spying, for the title of the book, but that'll probably be number two. No, not actual spies, but I do solicit from LinkedIn. I asked people quite often where or what they're experiencing right now, what their challenges are, the funny situations that they've been in, or the frustrating situations that they've been in. And it's actually, I suspect for the next group of 100 that half of them will be inspired by someone else who submitted an idea or even a comic. We did a comic competition at the Learning 2019 conference, and I've got about 25 really good concepts already just from that group. Yeah, I get asked a lot, are you spying on me? But I think that's part of, I don't want to say that I've landed on anything particularly special. I'm just sharing some of what my experiences are, but it shows how those experiences are prevalent. The good and the bad of L&D is an experience that individuals in all industries and around the world are experiencing. One of the things that surprised me about the comics is the number of people from India that follow and comment. And at first, if I'm being totally honest, when I saw a lot of people from India connecting with me, I thought for sure that I was either being sold for outsourcing or being scammed. That's sort of the stereotypical assumption that you might make. But in fact, India has a robust and booming L&D industry. Obviously, they're a developing country, so they've got a lot of people in the industry. And the ideas and concepts that come from that group alone, we could probably write a book with. So
yeah,
I don't think I kind of got lost halfway through answering that question. I forgot what the question was, so I just kept talking.
About the spies, if you have like different spies in business. Yeah.
The inspiration comes from a lot of different places. It is largely from LinkedIn and Twitter, just from scanning around, interacting with individuals, and I go, oh, that's one. Take a screenshot, ask the person if it's okay if I could use it. I also read like TD Mag, Training Mag, CLO, and just read articles, and when a lot of the case studies will provide a little bit of fodder for it. But the challenge is finding the way to make it humorous, because for this particular comic structure, the humor matters, and finding the surprise ending is the tricky part.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that being an issue for that, about just, and to your point about folks from India, I mean, how do you write these to where it's funny in every culture? I think that would probably be something that might be a little bit interesting to unpack as well. I want to say, let me go back to the Q&A here. I'll go to Sonia's question, then I'll loop back to Joe's. But Sonia was curious about the design of the characters, and I think that that's a really great question about, are they real world folks or something from your creative mind? So I'm just going to take it a step further. How about like the drawing aspect of it? How did you come up with kind of this motif of drawing out the people that look like this? Because I gotta admit here, Clint, not putting you on blast, but this particular one, that hair looks like yours. I'm just throwing that out there.
So,
Okay,
okay, so
you got the pompadour going.
it drives me nuts that it's called a pompadour. But fair enough, you're absolutely spot on. So this comic, I originally drew it. It took me way too long, and so I outsourced it. I haven't drawn one since.
So
And
this is it. This is your original artwork. This one.
no, I got it redrawn.
Oh, okay.
So I draw super realistic portraits. Like for my wife and I, our first anniversary, I was totally broke, so I drew her a picture of herself, like in a collage. Her family's from Fiji, with a whole bunch of different things from Fiji around her. And so I can draw comics as well, but I don't do it quickly. And when I figured out really, really early on, while I was drawing the first one, that if I continued to draw them, that the comic series would die. So I took the approach of, well, really a lot of famous comic authors, like the Calvin and Hobbes, the Peanuts comics, even some of the Far Side stuff. How it wasn't drawn by the original artists, because those comics became so large that volume couldn't be kept up, and then in some cases those artists just reached a point in their life where they couldn't do them anymore. So I'm not the artist of the comics; I'm the author only, and yeah, that's. So that's one of the things when I speak at conferences about using comics in learning and development. Now, these are one style of comic, one format of comic, where they're a conversation generator. There's a lot of different ways that comics can be used in L&D. And when I talk about that, one of the things I say to people is go check out gig sites. Fiverr especially that's actually where these are from. You could get almost these characters. He wouldn't give you these exact ones, but you could get these characters, and it's $30 US for a 6-panel comic. If you do less panels, it's $5 per panel in full color. Like, you just can't beat that kind of pricing. So when I talk about that at conferences, yes, you can do this. Yes, it's inexpensive. You just need the right idea or the right way to use the comics, and then leave the art to somebody else.
I love that. Okay. So you've kind of outsourced it, which is really interesting. And I think this Joe Ganchi, I see your question here about who do you outsource to? He has no drawing ability, but needs Fiverr. Do you have any other suggestions for Joe Ganchi on that one?
Fiverr's my go-to for simple graphic design work, but there's other ones like Upwork, TopTal. Those ones tend to be more project-based, where Fiverr you can get just small little pieces kicked across. And the other thing I should say about comics is we often put too much emphasis on the art. And there's a comic series, I forget what it's called right now, which is literally just dots. There's never anything in it but dots. It's a son and a mother. It's a bigger dot and a littler dot. And then they have a conversation, and they introduce the characters through the dialogue, which is a really, really interesting way to emphasize the significance of the dialogue instead of the art. In this case, though, I think the art, the colors, the facial expressions are really important to telling part of the story.
And the hair. The hair is important, right?
The hair's good. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, Rick, you took the thought right out of my mind about the XKCD is very, very kind of stick figures and drawings. But I mean, that one's been around for a while, and I know that that's still pretty popular. I always get a big kick out of some of the stuff on that one too, Rick. So kudos. All right, so we talked a little bit about your inspiration. We talked a little bit about the drawing. How about just kind of like, you said that you want to kind of keep this going. Did you ever think it would get to this point?
At some point, I realized it was getting to that point. Actually, I should say this. It was ATD actually reached out and asked if I would do a book for them. They didn't request this book. They requested something different, and due to some turnover on their end and some back and forth, that didn't wind up happening. I'm hoping it still will. But no, like, it was writing comics about L&D was never part of the plan. It really has, though, become, for me, I enjoy putting them out each week, in large part because of how much I learn from it. The dialogue and the conversation that happens on LinkedIn especially. And a lot of times there's angles that actually, most times there are angles that I hadn't considered at all. And someone will come back with even an alternative ending that's quite funny, but also topical. And that's sort of the driver for me. That's what I get excited about each Tuesday, is that I'm going to get into this conversation and I'm going to learn more about L&D from the L&D community.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why you should put things out on social media. I know a lot of people, if they haven't started, a lot of people are hesitant to kind of put themselves out there, but I completely agree with you. I've learned so much just from my conversations on social media. I feel like it's made me a better professional. What about what about trolls? Do you ever get somebody that's like, these aren't funny, what in the heck are you doing? And how have you kind of dealt with that if you've had to deal with that?
I've been really, really lucky on this front. I have had 3 instances where people have not even trolling, but people were actually upset about something inside the comics. One of them, if I'm being totally honest, was race related, and I felt like it was off base. And so I tried to engage in a conversation. The conversation never happened. It was about the number of African American characters and the role that they're playing inside the comics. And I think it's comic number 9, where the African American character is sort of blowing off what's happening. And in that, yeah, if you don't mind pulling it up, and in that situation, it became, yeah. So it's yeah, this is such a waste of time. Is that first comment, and then there's some funny stuff at the end there, but. Yeah, the comment was that this was the first time I had an African American character in the comics, and that I turned him into a buffoon. I don't think that's the case in this comic, and it's also not the first time that I had an African American character in the comics. We have several of them, but I'll say that it was beneficial in the fact that this were the first 10, and that commentary really said to me, I need to pay attention to the diversity of the characters and the roles that they're playing. The other consideration around this, and this wasn't something someone brought up, but something I thought a lot about, was the CEO character is an old white male. And at first I had planned, when I created the CEO character, to make it a woman character. But I also realized that I wanted that character to be a buffoon. And it didn't seem like I was striking the right balance with current culture to say, yes, we have a woman in a CEO position and she's an idiot. So I left that character as a male. I made the other 2 executives women who are both capable and competent. And then the other 2 things that really got people fired up was the first comic I made about learning styles. And there were, wow, the number of people that shot back and were upset that I took aim at learning styles. Really, really upset. People posting literature and posting comments, and it went on for a long time. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. Basically, I just started referring people to Clark Quinn's book. Most recent book, Millennials, Goldfish, and Other Training Misconceptions. And then the last piece was, and this one was the L&D community that I pissed off this time, I'm trying to remember what number it is, but I made a comic about working from home. And it's called Instructional Designers Be Like. And the first panel is, I'm going to get so much done today. Then he's feeding his cat, and he's watching TV, and he's making some food, and then the time's all gone. Individuals who work from home or are trying to get work from home arrangements did not find that funny and felt like I was propagating a myth about people working from home being ineffective. My response was, yeah, whatever. That's just not an important enough thing to get upset about personally. But it has happened those 3 times. But for the number of comments that have come across and the number of comics that have gone up, I'm okay with it. I can live with it.
Yeah, and I love what Chris says in the chat. He says it shows that we can always be learning. I mean, thank you for your honesty and transparency there. I mean, you totally didn't have to go that deep, but I mean, it really does show that obviously people are paying attention to this. But I kind of want to circle back real quick to the learning styles, because we did get a little bit of chatter in the chat about that. And I mean, I feel like if you know that it's a myth and you know that it is being put out there and people still believe it, and you're in some kind of a position that people can hear you and you're an ability to talk about, I think you should talk about it. I mean, here at the university, there are people that still believe that. I don't necessarily know if it's being taught here at the university. I don't necessarily want to go into that, but it is still very, very prevalent that people believe that that is the case. So I mean, I think you did a great job of even just bringing it up. I mean, I hate that people were just kind of like had their pitchforks out at you, going after you, but I do think that if we kind of know right and wrong, we're the ones that need to stand up for what this profession is and how to do it the right way and the truth behind it. And if we're not going to do that, then who is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a great example within the L&D community for us to learn from of cognitive dissonance, where when we want to give somebody an idea or concept or a new skill that is contrary to or conflicts with an existing knowledge or skill, belief, what have you, how that individual has to rectify that somehow. They have to rectify that dissonance. And really, there's only two ways to do that. One, to accept the new idea, or two, to reject the new idea. And when you have something that's that ingrained, that people have been taught for so long, that they've taken the psychometrics, using that term loosely in this case, it's really challenging to help people get past that. So hopefully over time here, as this has become such a popular topic online, I see that happening online, where individuals will say, there's actually no evidence that learning styles should be used when we're developing training. But it is tough, and we have to keep having that conversation. We have to continue. I give away copies of Clark's book. The second time I mentioned it, Millennials, Goldfish, and Other Trainings Misconnected. I have no association with Clark whatsoever. But the reason that I bring it up is he does such a great job explaining learning styles. So when I hear people start talking about it, particularly with clients, I send them a copy of Clark's book and hope that they come across it on their own.
I love that. I was at a conference, a local conference earlier this year, and this came up about learning styles, and it was in a presentation I was sitting in, and I couldn't just sit there and be quiet. And I, raised my hand and I said, "Hey, this isn't the way that this isn't right, blah, blah, blah." And then I actually tweeted Clark and I said, "Can we get like a bulk order of your books for this conference? Because I mean, there's a lot of people that need it." And then he, sent a link of, "Yeah, here's how you can order like in groups." But so I've brought up for folks that are wanting to learn more about this, I've actually brought up, thank you, Joe, for finding it, his learning style about the hedgehog. Why a hedgehog?
So in this case, there's sort of an inside joke here. I'm doing two things right now. So I'm going to talk, and there's actually another comic on learning styles that I need to find, because it's
okay, fine.
the original one. Yeah, so in this case, this is the hedgehog concept comes from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. It's one of the 5 key findings of their just ridiculously large, massive research projects. And the hedgehog concept in general is about a hedgehog is good at one thing. It's good at digging a hole. When it needs to get away from an enemy or protect itself, it digs a hole. If it needs to find a place to sleep, it digs a hole. If it wants to find food, it digs a hole. A hedgehog is a hole digger. That's what it does. It doesn't try and climb trees. It doesn't try and hunt anything else. Just a hedgehog does what a hedgehog does. And so that's what this comic is about. But then we try and flip it around to bring learning styles into it, just to make it a bit more fun and associated with L&D. And it's, in this case, though, I'm commenting more on how learners have this sense that they're an auditory learner, they're a visual learner, they're a kinesthetic learner. And we're all those things in different situations. And if we continue to let our learners believe that that's a thing, they're going to continually challenge what we're doing, or they always have this built-in excuse. So I don't think it's just L&D. I don't think it's just our clients. It's also the learners, and helping them understand what learning through different modalities actually means, and how it is or is not beneficial to them in different situations.
Would you be kind enough to link that book that you just mentioned with the hedgehog in the chat? Because this makes so much sense to me. I'm a huge video game person. I love video games. I love Sonic the Hedgehog. So this makes sense why Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, is getting so much backlash, because hedgehogs can only do one thing. And obviously for Sonic, it's video games. So thank you. Learn something every day. All right, let's talk a little bit more about maybe your book. I saw there's somebody that's pretty big that did your foreword, Elliot Macy. How did you get hooked up with him?
So this started actually out of escape rooms, of all things, not comics. So I spoke with Elliot. We connected on Twitter accidentally. I was headed to Toronto to speak on escape rooms in learning, and that was a November conference, and then they were hosting learning in October. And I saw that he had tweeted, "Escape rooms, anyone?" He just threw it in as they were brainstorming ideas. And so I tweeted back. I said, "Well, I'm doing something in Toronto. I'd love to come to Orlando and participate in that." And so we wound up on a phone call. I ended up going to the conference. There's the Good to Great link in the comments. Wound up going to the conference and running the escape room with a couple of other participants, and then followed up the following year with escape rooms again, and then missed it last year, came back again this year, and was involved in a whole bunch of different events. But just built up a relationship with Elliot over time. And when I actually had a list, I created this prioritized list of people I thought might do it, as well as individuals I thought would be good to do it. And I only had to ask one person. So I actually have to go down the list. And Elliot's a funny guy. His conference, as well as his Broadway productions, his production company, he does a really great job of entertaining and keeping people engaged. That Gagne's first event of instruction gained the learner's attention. And I don't know that in the conference space, anyone's done it better than him.
Gotcha. I had a chance to meet him at ATD ICE this year, and he was just sitting there in his little vendor booth, and it was like him and his wife, and I was like, "Hi!" And he was very nice. So I haven't had a chance to go to any of his events, but yeah, I agree. He's a very, very nice man. You just reminded me of something. One thing that I think a lot of people don't know about you, because I do think that people kind of know you as kind of the L&D comic person, is by far, I cannot tell you how many people I have told or referenced your Disrupt HR talk. That is probably one of my favorite things I have heard in this space for a very, very long time. Do you care to talk a little bit about your topic for your Disrupt HR talk? Because I do think that it's a very kind of interesting, especially for our audience, because I don't know if a lot of people know what Disrupt HR is.
Sure, I can talk about both of those. Just want to confirm, you're talking about the We Suck at Training talk.
Yes, I love it. Yes,
I've got 3 of them now that I'm pretty happy with. So the Disrupt HR is it's actually kind of like a little franchise. It's not very expensive though. You get $500 to own a city, and I think it's a 60-mile radius or 100-mile radius, something like that. You can be the only one in that area. So all major cities essentially now have them, and it is an evening of Pechakucha, I'm probably saying that wrong, style talks. So the actual Pechakucha is 20 slides by 20 seconds each. To reduce the time, they do it 20 slides by 15 seconds each, and every slide progresses automatically. So every 15 seconds, your slide changes. And I really enjoy it. The amount of preparation required is much higher than doing a long format talk. If you make a mistake, recovering is harder. So it's a really, really fun type of event. And there's a lot of humor. It's a very high energy event. And you stick enough HR people in the room getting drunk, bad things happen, and or good things happen, I guess is the right way to say it. My talk specifically was called We Suck at Training. And I believe that. I think we've seen some of the stats. They're questionable the way that they've been collected, but some of the stats where 80 or 85% of what is taught in training is lost in the first month or first year, whatever it is. We see images of the forgetting curve have become really popular right now, even though that's from the 1800s, 1849 maybe, for Ebbinghaus. And what is so frustrating about training is that 1885. Thank you, Joe. What is so frustrating about that is we know that we're bad at it. We talk about how bad we are at it at our conferences. We talk about how bad we are about it online. We talk about it at work. We talk about it with other professionals. All the time we talk about how bad it is, and then we turn around and keep making more of the same. And so in that particular talk, I postulate essentially that there's 3 things that we can do right away to just make the training better, the actual training event better. There's more required for the overall effectiveness. But let's use more pictures. And I don't just mean glamour pictures. I mean, let's use images in a way that help tell the story we want to tell and to help learners understand the content. Let's tell stories. All the same messages right there as well. We don't just need to tell stories, but we need to tell stories that are topical, that help the learner understand better. And then we also need to let people have fun. We need to make the learning more human. If there's anything that frustrates me more than how badly we treat our learners with corporate mumbo jumbo, just wasting their time. I just recently built an e-learning course for a bank that was supposed to be entirely dialogue based, characters interacting and talking. And by the time their managers and their lawyers went through it, it just became the absolute, I do not want to have to watch this. Bullet points on the slide would be better, where it's, hi, Joe, are you going to do your compliance training today? Oh, yeah, my compliance training. I'm so excited. I've always wanted to learn. Like, come on. I think that a lot of the times when we walk in the classroom or go into an e-learning course, when it's compliance training that we just have to do and nobody wants to do, we should tell people that. Say, hey guys, look, this isn't going to be fun, but we have to do it legally. So let's, this is what we're going to try and do to make it more enjoyable. Or we're going to try and get through this as fast as we can. Just empathizing with the fact that people don't want to be there because it sucks. And so really that's what that talk was about, is let's do some things to make our learning more human. And we can do that with stories, and we can do that with pictures, and we can do that with fun.
I love it. And I love learner engagement. Like, this year has kind of been my year of like deep diving into that, presenting at that. And I don't know if I even got a chance to tell you this, but I actually referenced you in my DevLearn presentation, because one of my favorite things that you said in that talk, and then I gave a link to your talk so other people could watch it in my resource box, is, and again, I'm kind of fudgy on the number, but I remember this distinctly, like 70 or 80% of people hate their job according to Gallup, but yet they'd rather work than go to your training course. And when I put that in my presentation, and then I said, Clint said this, here's a link to his Disrupt HR talk. Like, I mean, people, like, their jaws were wide open. But I mean, it was so true, because I really love the fact that, I mean, honesty, it hurts and it stings, but I know myself. Again, I love being in this space. I really do. Like, I can't imagine doing anything else for a career, but I will wait till the last minute to take a compliance course, because I know it's going to take a lot of my time and it's not going to be engaging. So if I do that myself, then what hope do we have for others if they're all kind of built that way?
Yeah, no question. And the stat is 85% is what Gallup says. 85% of people hate their jobs. I think that statistic is probably a bit dramatic. They've probably taken, all of the I hate my job, I somewhat hate my job, and I sort of hate my job on the Likert scale is probably what they've done. But still, yeah, that stat that a lot of people, especially frontline employees, really don't enjoy their jobs, and they'd rather do that than get paid to go do something else and paid to just sit and learn. So that's got to tell you something about the quality of the training. And on top of that, what is even more perplexing probably is that we look at when we look at training as an opportunity inside an organization, we ask people about training. They say that they want it. They say that they want training and they want career development opportunities. All of that is true. They want training. They just don't want yours. So when we're forcing people to go to training, when we're only delivering compliance training, we're not giving people options as to what they should learn about it, or involving them in the process of creating the training, asking them what they feel that they need. Of course, we're going to run into that situation. So there's more that has to happen than just making the training more fun. But there's we're getting two different messages. I don't like the training, and I really want training, and those two things don't line up. So we know that there's a gap that exists there. I just did a podcast recently while at Learning, the Learning Conference, with Richard Collada. Richard is just a super cool guy, super nice guy, really involved. I think it's the International Society for Technology and Education. He's the CEO there, but he's also done a bunch of work with the US government. He was the Chief Innovation Officer, I think, for the state of Rhode Island. Really knowledgeable, really experienced guy. And the way that he said it in that podcast was, why do we tell our learners that we hate them? And I love that. I love that level of drama and excitement around it. And specifically what we were talking about at the time was the next button. Why do we build e-learning courses that's just next, multiple choice, finished? And the question I like to ask my clients, and he and I connected really well on that topic, the question I often find myself asking my clients is, why can't this be a PDF? If all you're going to do is put text on screen and throw up bullet points, make it a PDF. And if your LMS doesn't allow you to track whether or not somebody completed an LMS or read a PDF and clicked something at the end of it, you've got a really lousy LMS. Like, there's other ways to track that, and a PDF is so much faster to create, faster to get through. Why wouldn't we do that in that situation? I think we, e-learning developers, or the e-learning industry as a whole, doesn't ask that question often enough. Why couldn't this be something less?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of times we're pushed, a lot of times, especially if you're like newer or maybe don't have that backbone or kind of that business acumen with your skill set. You want to make an e-learning for everything, and you want to take those PowerPoints and just put them in Storyline or Captivate. But obviously that doesn't really enhance the learner's experience. And it's so funny you mentioned Richard's name, because I want to say I saw him 2015 at a distance education conference. He was one of the keynotes, and something that he said there has always stuck with me. And this was more in the higher ed space, but I also think it is good for the corporate space as well. But he had a tombstone. I'll never forget the slide of tombstone that said, "Here lies students' data. We'll try better next time." Because for higher ed, a lot of times after those evaluations end for that course instructor, regardless of what they said, the student is still going to have a crummy experience. And I think a lot of that is also true in the learning development world. When we build something and we get feedback after they've already taken it, but then a lot of times it just kind of sits there and it's like, oh yeah, we'll get that the next year. Well, that doesn't change the fact that somebody had a really crummy experience going through a learning,
Yeah, and to take that further, Cara, I'm debating whether or not we should ever use smile sheets. There are times when the data coming out of them is valuable, but the correctly building that type of feedback mechanism there's a lot of scientific work that should be going into it. Most of us listening right now shouldn't be doing it, because we don't have the appropriate skill set to actually build an effective feedback form. And then the follow up to that becomes the next step to that becomes that the learners are notoriously bad at assessing their own learning and the effectiveness of what they learned. And quite frankly, even if they did learn, which is getting on to level 2, even if they did learn, it means nothing if they don't do. Really, it's not until Kirkpatrick's level 3 that we get any real kind of value out of it. And certainly that's another topic where trainers would, no, I need those sheets. I need to know, did people like it? Did they really? What they're saying is, I need to know if people liked me. Which doesn't matter, and so I struggle with whether or not we should have them at all, for the amount of risk associated with it versus the amount of value and the time required to actually do something with them. I think our time's spent somewhere else. You probably on the floor in Gemba with the learners, and seeing whether or not they're using what they learned. That would be a far better use of time. If it's going to be 3 hours total to build the form, collect the data, and look at the data, potentially do something with it, you're way better off just spending those 3 hours, half hour each with 6 different people out on the floor, seeing if they're able to use it and whether or not it's effective for them. We're just making bad use of our time in that way, I think.
No, I completely agree. And I will say the only thing that changed my mind on smile sheets was Will Tallheimer's book, Performance-Based Smile Sheets, which I linked in the chat. Smilesheets.com should get you there. But if I've done anything in my current role, that is one thing that I have helped change, is our evaluations to make them more performance-based and behaviorally anchored. So instead of having a Likert of like 1 to 5, like how much did you like this course, what Will talks about is a 1 being, I need more instruction on this. I am not able to do this in my day-to-day, to 5, I get it and I think I could teach a peer. That is so much more valuable than, did you like it? How was, and you're absolutely right, Clint. A lot of times they're very kind of, I hate to say it, ego-based. Like, did they like me? Did they like the food? Did they like what we're doing? It's more like a pat on the back versus focusing on what they actually need and how they can enhance their performance after taking whatever the learning experience is.
Yeah, absolutely. Or my absolute favorite question, did the training effectively achieve the objectives? Well, it would be really, really hard to tell particularly for the learner to make that assessment. And for the most part, I did this in another talk. That slide, when individuals pull up that slide, or when that slide is pulled up and you start talking about it, like that's the signal for the learners to go to sleep. And usually they're written so poorly that A, we couldn't measure it, or B, they're written in such a complicated language that nobody actually understands what they mean. And then we ask them, did we achieve that? Well, who knows? Let's just write better objectives and not ask about it and just achieve them. We should know. We shouldn't have to ask the learner if we achieve them. If we have to ask the learner if we achieve the objectives, we've done something really wrong.
I agree. And another one that gets me is the net promoter score, but I'm not going to get, I know that that's really controversial because then people really get their pitchforks out. There's people that love that, but I'm not personally a fan. So let's scoot back to the book because I can't believe we only have 15 minutes left. This time has just absolutely flown by. So I have just another page open of Clint's book here, and this is from our pal Sam Rogers, friend of TLDC. And so do you care to share a little bit about how you got people to quote in the book? What was that like? Because I have to admit, when I got this, I completely forgot that I had quotes in the book. I was like, oh, cool, I'm in here. How did you set that up?
So there were actually a few different things that we did to try and involve the LinkedIn community. Like I had said at the start of this wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to be a book. It was just supposed to be 5 comics. The reason that it kept going was because of the LinkedIn community that got involved with the comics and began becoming a part of the conversations. So it didn't seem appropriate to create a book and not give them the credit they deserve for all of the great commentary and interaction that they had had. So I sent out a group because I didn't want to get caught in the situation where I had 500 quotes. And then I had to tell a whole bunch of people that, sorry, you didn't make the cut, if you will. I sent an email to about 100 individuals, or a LinkedIn message to about 100 individuals who had really supported the comics from early on, and asked, would you like to submit a quote? Not a Richard Branson quote, not a Steve Jobs quote, not a Henry Ford or Winston Churchill, like something that you've said or that you would say, something that you believe in about learning and development, and then we'll try and associate them with relevant comics. So that's what we have. So the way the book is set up is on the odd page on the left side, the even page, the left side, there is a comic. And then on the right side, there is a quote from somebody that is on LinkedIn and sharing their thoughts or their experiences and what they've gone through. And there's some great ones in there, some really, really good ones in there. Threw in a couple of my own because there were ones that didn't. There were ones where there were comics that didn't really have a good quote. I really didn't want to do that. I had hoped not to do that, but otherwise it wouldn't have made sense. But yeah, it was really about just involving those individuals in the process. There's also 4 articles in the book from 4 people that were really supportive of the L&D Scenes, have shared them a lot, and have helped me grow the L&D Scenes brand. And so those articles are from them and their experience with and why they enjoyed the L&D Scenes. And those were, for me personally, probably the most rewarding to hear people talk about what it means to them to have the comics, and that it's more than just a laugh. It's more than just the learning. It's the empathy that comes from it, and understanding that we're all experiencing the same challenges. We're all having the same problems. We're all fighting through a lot of the same stuff, and that we have a community that we can go to help find that. And these are just the comics have really just facilitated bringing those people together.
I love it. And I know that I used to work with a lady who literally in her office had tons of comics printed everywhere. So it makes me kind of want to print these. And I do appreciate you selecting some of the stuff that I said in the book. Although I have to admit, you made me sound a whole lot smarter than I actually am, because I don't remember saying or writing it that way. I was like, I sound kind of cool. That's cool. So I appreciate that.
You are that smart and you are that cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Another question I had kind of pop up about these. I mean, obviously these are great. They get a lot of response apparently from the community, which is, again, fantastic. Have you ever thought about doing these in a video form, like a cartoon?
So yes, and the first 30 are set up as animations. But they're built-in storylines, so limited to storyline animations, and then have voiced them over with professional voiceover. And it adds sort of a new element to them. I think I still prefer the print or just regular comic versions than those videos. That's why I haven't kept going with them. I've debated whether or not to hire someone to animate them correctly, where the scene plays out not in comic panels, but the scene starts happening, people leave, change of scene, that sort of thing. But it's tough to just time wise. There's a lot going on to try and make that happen. I will probably continue with the storyline animation and then decide from there. I've also thought about character animate and taking a couple of those characters and actually turning them into talking heads so that they can create videos and have conversations on YouTube and that sort of thing. But down the road, we'll see what happens from there.
That'd be so fun. I could even see almost like a little jib jab riff where people could kind of build their own with the different characters. I think that would be fun. Another question, and again, judge me and my generation because everyone else does, but what about merch? Have you thought about making like mugs, t-shirts, that kind of stuff?
Yes, I have, and I was actually I should have just gone straight to let's make some merch so that people can buy, because I get asked about it fairly regularly. And what I was trying to find and spent probably a month looking, I couldn't find someone to do it, was I wanted to create for this Christmas a build your own calendar. So that you could go on and pick your 12 or 24 or 36, whatever comics that are your favorite and have them all in a calendar form. But I can't find anywhere that will do that. And I want it to be drop shipped. Like I don't have to touch it ever. So I think what we're going to do, it'll end up being next year, obviously, is or we could do it like in June, do like the last 6 months and then the following 18 is to put them into categories and say, this is all trainer, this is all instructional design, this is all managers behaving badly, and then have calendars. But yeah, there's lots of things that we could do with them. I've never really pushed it because I'm not trying to get rich with them. Like, I'm not gonna make $1 million on comics about learning and development. But I can learn a lot. I can share a lot and just use it to build brand, I guess.
No, I love it. So we have 8 minutes left. If you have not already, just a quick reminder, I'll go ahead and pull up the raffle here in a couple of minutes. So to enter the raffle, I'm giving away a book out of my pocketbook, and so Clint is also paying for a book. So we have 2 books that we're giving away. To enter, all you do is click the button below and go to pen.umu.com, put in number 843607, and then put your name. So I'll give folks a couple more minutes to do that, and then we'll give away those 2 books. But any kind of last thoughts on this, Clint? Where can people find you? How can people get involved with this? Shameless plugs welcome here.
If you're not already, connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm not very good at following back on Twitter because I don't pay close enough attention to it. But if you shoot me a message, like in Twitter, the direct messages, I don't even check them anymore because it's just all spam. I don't know how people use that at all. But yeah, definitely connect on LinkedIn. I'll connect with anybody from the L&D world. I think there's so much value in that. And then I had one other thought on I haven't done this yet. I keep thinking I need to go and do it, and then it's just the time consumption to do it. In my mind, the comics are all under Creative Commons license. So what I mean by that is you can use the comics. You can use them in your training. You can use them in your presentations. You can post them online. You can pretty much do whatever you want with them as long as you don't edit them. Don't edit them and don't take away my information off them and sell it as your own, obviously. So that's pretty much the thing. I get asked all the time, can I use this? Yeah, absolutely. You can use it. So feel free to use them any way that you see fit. That's what they're there for. I'm not getting rich off them. I'm not trying to protect them, other than I don't want people putting in their own thoughts and creating their own new comics, which may be inconsistent with how I've presented them as a brand. So that's really the only thing that I'm worried about. But otherwise, yeah, use them freely. That's my big thing. I like it when people are using them for different things. There's a few organizations that use them as a weekly conversation starter. Some people use them in their training. Elaine Bike included them in her recent book with ATD. So they're out there, and feel free to use them.
Yeah, I could totally see even like workshops around these, just like how to start a conversation and maybe using humor, storytelling, that kind of stuff. So I love that. And that's very kind of you. And I know a lot of people sometimes are very worried about kind of putting out their thoughts and intellectual property and etc. And I have to say, like, I feel like I'm a better professional for the things that I've shared, even though I know I had a presentation absolutely get ripped off by somebody else. And I was mad for like a day. And then I was like, well, cool, I'll just build something else for make it bigger, better, faster, stronger. So yeah, I love that. That's really, really kind of you. So
abundance mentality. It's not as hot a topic as it was probably 10 years ago, but yeah, like the more you give away, the more that comes back. Like I believe that completely. And with the L&D scenes, it's certainly been that. And everything else. Yeah, there's more than enough to go around.
Absolutely. I think the world is big enough for everyone to have a slice of success. And I feel like we all win when everybody wins. So everybody that's here, are you in for the raffle? Yes, no, just let me know. So again, 2 books. So I'll do 2 drawings here. Again, thank you, Joe Ganchi, for letting me know about the issue with this. So if you see it say TechSmith, I'm sorry, that's for a different presentation. I gave away a TechSmith bundle. So without further ado, again, if you're interested in using this tool, it's called Umu. I'm not making any royalties or anything. Again, it's a nice free tool. Again, my slogan is if it's free, it's for me. So let's go ahead and start the raffle. So here we go. It is going to pick a winner, and this one will be from me. Jack! So I think Jack was one of our social media people that shared. So I know she actually just went on vacation. So I will connect with her and I will go ahead and make sure that she gets her book. And then, Clint, you ready for me to hit the button for the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jack is actually in the book somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So that's awesome. Good for her.
Yay. Awesome. Okay. All right. And our last book we're giving away. Da, 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 da. Joe Ganchi.
Hey.
Hey. All right. Yay. I love it when people win because I'm the person that never wins anything. So I'm always get like so excited when people win stuff. So yay, Joe. So Joe, reach out. Clint will reach out to you and we'll make sure that you get your book. We'll end a couple minutes early today. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thanks so much for being part of TLD Cast. If you are not connected with us, you can join us at tldchat.us. tldchat.us, I believe, takes you to our Slack channel, and then tldc.us takes you to our website. And thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Clint, for being here. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. You guys have a great day.
All right, thank you. All right, bye.